Alice K. Shattuck, Esquire, I bring your attention to, every Sunday I like to curl up in my Barca Lounger and read the Town Common.
Do you?
Yes.
What's the Town Common?
This is the largest distribution across North Shore of Massachusetts and coastal New Hampshire. It is... Oh, hold on. It is the Town Common.
I was wondering when you were going to notice that.
It's the North Shore paper, so this has Ipswich, Newburyport, etc. And I got today's version. It's a free paper. It's actually kind of a nice paper. It is a tabloid-style paper. But anyway, I was at the store that absolutely wasn't selling vodka, and I saw one there, and I saw this headline that said, Bloody Tuesday Strike Honored. I thought, okay, what are the chances this goes where I think it's going? So we got a little bit of history in this, Alice. Dateline, this is by Stuart Little with a Y. So it might be Lytle, I'm not sure. I assume I have a problem with him, either way. Who's named Stuart anymore? Okay, so Dateline Ipswich. Last week, dozens of people, including descendants of Nicoletta Patalopoulos, gathered at the corner of Main and Saltonstall Streets to unveil a new plaque honoring the 27-year-old mill worker and other bystanders whom police shot 109 years ago to break up a protest here for higher wages and better working conditions. Initiated and funded by the town's historical commission, which are more than ever making trouble.
Of course.
The plaque, I get the feeling that the plaque about how the Indians massacred somebody is gone, and instead we have this one. Initiated by the town's historical commission, the plaque on the property owned by, across the street from the Institution for Savings reminds passers-by that Ipswich was the scene of what has become known as Bloody Tuesday, June 10th, 1913. Oh, if not a week goes by when I don't think about Bloody Tuesday. Tuesday, Bloody Tuesday. My goodness, if that's not Commonwealth lore, I don't know what it is. But anyway, the bronze plaque reads, near this spot, police clashed with immigrant workers. What kind of workers?
Immigrant workers?
Correct. Police clashed with immigrant workers, striking for an increase in pay at the Ipswich hosiery mill, firing into the crowd. Several people were injured, and an onlooker, Nicoletta Patalopoulos, was fatally shot. The ceremony began and ended at the Assumption of the Virgin Mary Greek Orthodox Church. What do you suppose if you were to... Oh, no, actually, maybe that's not. But I'm going to put it out there anyway. Oh, it's a Greek Orthodox Church because the Patalopoulos was shot. So,
yeah.
Participants carrying Greek flags and workers' banner paraded on the sidewalks downtown. Christine Santopoulos, Nicoletta's great-grandniece, who helped organize the event, told the crowd her great-aunt would have been honored for the town to remember her in this way. She's buried in what is called the Immigrant Cemetery, now part of the Highland Annex Cemetery on Fowler Lane. Fairly interesting stuff. A union problem, the police crackdown, and violence, was not a rare thing at the time. Patalopoulos was walking home from her shift at the Browns Essex Mill to downtown Ipswich. Her great-grandnephew, Michael Sarantopoulos, told the crowd that Nicoletta was happy that day. She was on her way to celebrate her engagement to be married, he said. At SD Street, she encountered a crowd, mostly of Greek and Polish workers, striking for a 20% wage hike. She stopped to watch the protest, but the primary breadwinner for her mother and younger sister did not join in the protest. So she was just watching. She was not in the protest.
Okay.
Asterisk. At the time, workers were paid by the piece, and salaries ranged from $250 to $650 a week. Yada, yada, yada. So, the owners, supported by the local newspaper publisher and town officials, called out the Ipswich police and officers from other towns to quell the protests. Shortly before 6 p.m., when the crowd did not disperse, the police were ordered to shoot into the crowd. They fired 50 to 100 bullets in 5 minutes, injuring several protesters. Nicoletta, standing on a porch nearby, was struck in the head and died. George Calvis, who held a brick, was shot in the leg. Panagiova Paganus was shot through the cheek because she brandished a club. Arcus Parskevas was shot above the knee. 3 other bystanders were also shot. Flora Cornelius, a 36-year-old housewife, was shot above the knee. Sadis Gerokopoulos, an 18-year-old fruit vendor manning his stand, was shot through the ankle. Nicoletta's death was a huge financial and emotional loss to her family. Her fiancé returned to Greece, joined the army, and died in World War I.
Okay.
Thanks, Ipswich PD. A lot of people have never heard about it, said Linda Grimes, vice chair of the Historical Commission.
It is an interesting story.
Of course it is, but there's stories like this all over the place. It has been swept under the rug. The attack on mostly immigrant workers was a terrible incident, she said. Of course, mills at the turn of the century were filled with immigrant workers.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Meyer, a commission
And
member...
of course, now those people are all bad guys anyway.
Right.
Greeks and Polish people are not on the good list for most good liberals nowadays.
No, they are now bad. They are now the oppressors. They wear MAGA hats. Rachel Moore, a commission member, said, it is an uncomfortable subject. Now, these commission members are all generally well-heeled, credentialed progressives who are happy to use these commissions to point out just how bad this country is. The town's historical commission voted unanimously to honor Papadopoulos and others. They got a huge bronze plaque there. The plaque cost about a couple $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Ipswich was not a hotbed of radical labor protest in the 20th century. It was a company town. The establishment, led by George Schofield, the publisher of the Ipswich Chronicle and a local politician, opposed the strike and sided with the mill owners, who recruited scab workers in the Boston docks. Town selectman Charles Hull read the strikers a riot act, ordering them to disperse. Most of the workers, who spoke only Greek, probably didn't understand his orders. Following the violent incident, no police officer was charged. Instead, local town officials and business leaders, including Ipswich Chronicle, put out false information that disparaged immigrants and the striking workers. Initially, the police said they were fired on from tenement houses near the factory. Selectman Hull claimed that 6 shots were fired at police, although at the trial no evidence was produced that the strikers had guns. The police claimed Papadopoulos was killed by a bullet fired from the second floor of a nearby tenement. But the local medical examiner ruled that was impossible. From the angle of the bullet that entered her head, she appeared to have been shot by someone standing directly in front of her, the bad cops.
Mm-hmm.
The Chauvins of their day. A dozen strikers were arrested and put on trial, but when the evidence against them was insufficient to support the charges, the case against them collapsed. So I read all of this entire thing in the town common of the North Shore of Massachusetts, really just for this last paragraph.
Okay. I'm ready.
History tends to repeat itself a lot, said town historian Gordon Harris last year before he spoke about the Ipswich hosiery strike at the Essex Heritage Symposium. The parallels between 1913 and current events are unmistakable, he said. So the point is this. Nothing is serious anymore. Nothing is serious anymore. Everything is about painting this country as terrible. And now is terrible. And look at this. There was a labor action 109 years ago, and you see the cops were bad then too. Mm-hmm. Just shooting into the crowd, wantonly killing immigrants. I wonder how many of those cops were immigrants. I would probably suggest a lot of them. But you know what? That's right. It's just it never ends. These people thrive. And I had it when I was a young man too. I knew girls of my age who were just hated this country. Hated it. Everything it does is wrong. Everything it did is wrong. They were all upscale, all lived in beautiful redone Victorians and the nice side of town. And to a person, it's just simply about hating this country. This article, which could be interesting actually, if you got into the X's and O's of really what was happening, could be interesting. Mm-hmm. But this is just condemning the country we live in. It's just another reason to condemn it. It's terrible. Nothing's changed. Condemn, condemn, condemn. That's it. So there is no media anymore.
Yeah, what exactly is supposed to be the parallel? Where do we have cops shooting immigrant
Cops,
workers?
yeah, cops shoot because we're xenophobic now. Because well, you notice in the southern border, they were strapping people last year, and cops shot the mostly immigrant workers. Now, I would think that first of all, that was a no BS time about 1910. It was a different time. It was not this time. I don't know that the cops gave a flying heck who was an immigrant. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. Maybe it was a white supremacist.
Well, I did think it was interesting that they said the guy holding the brick got shot and somebody holding a club got shot. It sounds like there was a little more to it than a peaceful protest.
Right, because there were violent labor actions at the time, including murders and pillaging and all the other things. So it was on.
We were basically like in a low grade war for like a few decades there with labor and various law enforcement or like private law enforcement, like Pinkerton stuff and all that. I mean, yeah, there was actual violence around labor disputes pretty commonly in this country. But yeah, once again, it could be an interesting story and you could actually talk about it, but it's not really actually that parallel to what's happening now.
Right. And I would say as well that it's not simply to use the term, the binary, that the mean hosiery mill owners said we need to make good men, we need to make more profits, more profits, more profits. They also had a universe of things to consider, including their own relationships, their relationship with the community, their own vendors or customers who were waiting for the hosiery stuff to arrive. They probably had to worry about supply chain stuff, all sorts of things. I guarantee you that those owners, the mean owners with pocket watches, etc., had a world full of realities to contend with. That the dudes saying we want more than $650 a week could not even imagine. And if you've been in management, you know that is the case. The world is really easy when you're a line level person. Makes total sense. Good versus bad. Management is bad. We do all the work. They get all the profits. Once you're in management, it changes. And I wish the world was nice and simple like this, but it's not.
Yeah, I know somebody who says all the time, like, I wish I could be a liberal. It would be so easy. Things would be so simple. You could just go through life believing, like, management is always wrong and bad, and, like, the good, noble workers are always good, and everything's simple and easy. And, yeah, because it does seem to be a very peaceful worldview, really. Like, you don't have to, there's not a lot of nuance or stress to it. You always know who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. It's very easy.
So, in that, one of the Sunday shows, Ibram X. Kendi was on today. Now, he's a dumb, but we're all into this thing where Juneteenth is a thing. Now, I think that actually the end of slavery probably rates as far as
something to celebrate.
Right, absolutely. The day that Texas finally finds out seems like a weird way to do it, but fine, whatever. But I think
and I guess it was like a holiday in Texas that people knew about before, like this year. But the truth is that this all happened in the last 2 to 3 years, or I would say two.
It's all George Floyd.
2 years. So
for the rest of the country, it's all George Floyd. And these liberals now with Ukraine signs are acting like they always celebrated Juneteenth. They haven't heard. They have no idea about it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like, so 2 years ago I first started to hear about Juneteenth, and then last year they just acted like everybody was supposed to know about Juneteenth, and it was like a thing that we all had been doing, and you obviously knew about Juneteenth.
It was musical chairs. If you were the last one to know, then you were condemned, and it needed to be canceled.
Right, because it definitely, it wasn't a thing before, 2 years ago at all.
No.
And then last year, they just started to act like this was a thing. Now there's, a Juneteenth flag that places are flying, and there's, Juneteenth stuff. At the Walmart, you can buy your Juneteenth plates for your Juneteenth celebration. A bunch of people now suddenly have the day off work. Probably, I think it's 50-50 right now of people that I know in corporate jobs who have the day off tomorrow or not. A bunch of people have Juneteenth off work. I know somebody whose company had a party and a trivia day at work, who works for a tech company. And so all of a sudden, this is now something that we're all doing, is celebrating Juneteenth. And like, I don't know. It's weird how now the left sort of just like, and I think the right does this too in their own ways, but like we just like meme things into reality. Like people talk about Juneteenth like it's a thing until they magically make it a thing.
Right. Right. So now it's a thing, which is even whatever. I don't really care. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of generally these holidays anyway. I mean, I just think that, okay, so people are going to barbecue an extra day and get day drink? Is that what the slaves would have wanted? I don't know. Was that what anybody would have wanted?
Is that what like the fallen service members want us to do on Memorial Day? But that's what people do.
Right. And also like with the MLK holiday, I always thought about like, isn't he worth more than just another day like everybody else has? But no, that's what we've decided. We decided the rule is you get a day if you're really cool, and so that's it. So we have Juneteenth and whatever. I mean, I would think that if there's a Pride Month, then the descendants of slaves, or actually
you read my mind. That was going to be my next thing I said, is like everybody gets a day except one group. One group gets an entire month of the year where we all have to know all about them. But I do think it's interesting how the left has been pushing this like this Juneteenth stuff, and I do think there's a push to create sort of like a separate cultural experience for Black Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And that, and they've started doing this stuff at some sporting events, like the Black National Anthem, like that's going to be a thing now. And now there's the Juneteenth flag. Like I guarantee you this is going to be seen as like the alternative patriotic holiday and flag to have in the summer if you're like a Black American, right?
Yeah.
Although, the DC mayor was doing her own thing for Flag Day too. Did you see this?
No.
So she set up all the flags for Flag Day. They are doing them with 51 stars.
Oh, maybe I did see that.
So again, trying to meme things into reality. They're upset that they're not a state, and the House passed something to make them a state that the Senate's not going to pass. But why do they get to be a state?
Well, it doesn't matter. Everybody gets to be whatever now. So you can only affirm.
So we're just going to add the star to the flag. We're going to tell you we're a state and put the star on the flag, and then we're going to just pretend that we are.
Right. Well, Alice, we talked about it last week. A heavily painted, wigged man dressed up as a bird for a commercial and pranced around pretending to be a bird, and it was to be celebrated. The freaking the food delivery company is now doing PSAs about how to have good, safe, alternative sex so that there's no mess. I mean, everything is gone. It's interesting. We were talking to our friends in Ipswich today, the site, by the way, of Bloody Tuesday.
You may have heard.
Yes, and it's like this. Suddenly, in the last half year, it's been a Hail Mary. Let's do it all. Let's just go for the. Let's have the drag queens twerk with the kids. Let's make the full court rush right now. And anybody who's against it is a bigot and has a problem, is a hater, etc., and doesn't like it. I tweeted. I did a Substack last weekend, on the fact that it's okay at Fenway Park now to have men dressing as gaudy harlots, twerking and dancing badly with no talent in front of kids. At kids, I think it should be said. But it's the worst thing in the world when two actual women showed their actual female features, and I have people like coming on Twitter saying, "Oh, dude, ratio." It's like, what the? First of all, are you a man? Are you an adult? You're gonna hurt my feelings. And I'm getting ratioed on Twitter, like whatever that freak that is. But also, the picture of the Air Force people running with gay pride flags, and to a person, I think at least 4 out of the 5 women running with the pride flags are obese, overweight.
Yeah.
And they've got a pride flag. And I tweeted out, what the F is this? And people said, people serving their country. Are we going to pretend we're not seeing this?
No, you're not allowed to notice that something's wrong with this picture.
Right.
That
One,
normally,
there's a gay pride flag in the military,
that
and
a few
2,
years
they're fat.
That a few years ago, the military used to use, like, the U.S. flag.
Right.
For example.
I don't want to know, when it comes to the military, if somebody's big into fly fishing, or is a Satanist, or believes in Scientology, or is huge into pride, or is a huge fan of avocado toast, or is questioning whether or not they should marry a pony. The military is to wash away the individual,
right,
and to show a cohesive fighting unit. I don't want to know your hang-ups, your effing problems. And ideally, it's a meritocracy, because we need the good people to be there who are good at air forcing. We don't need a bunch of fatties in there because they're gay, or because they're straight, or because they identify as whatever. And so, don't effing gaslight me and say, what's wrong with this picture? Huh? What's wrong with this picture? I have somebody I have people who I used to work with saying, what are you saying? In other words, I'm loading my gun right now. Step into the snipe zone, Tom. What are you saying? Are you saying the thing I hope you're saying, which is you hate gays? Which is not true. It's absolutely not true. By the way, I have so many gay creds. I don't even have any time for this crap. I don't care. And you know what? Some of my really good friends are gay, okay? Who I've worked with and had excellent experiences with and had wonderful times with, and who I love to this day. Some of the best times in my life were spent around gay people, before I knew that it was a litmus test, before I knew it made me really a really good person, okay? It's like, I don't have anything to prove to any of you. Just fire me, for God's sakes, or get me canceled, or do something. I'm asking for it. God. Shut up. Oh, everybody, and this idea that you've heard people, I've listened to way too many podcasts this weekend. One of the on Bill Maher was either this weekend or last weekend was. Oh, we should play that. I should grab that. Hopefully, I sent it to us. Cornel West was on.
Okay.
Who I kind of like now, because I'm amused by his grift. I'm amused by it. It seems loving and cool and inclusive, and I like that. And I think he makes you feel good if you're in the room with him. Mm-hmm. Brother Tom, this and that. And it's very positive. But one of the things he was talking about was the problem is we've got there's so much violence shown in Hollywood, and it's not just there's the culture of violence, and he's probably right about that, especially in marginalized communities. Violence is a good thing. Just emptying your Glock, into somebody else's car if you've got a beef with them, it's a good thing. Whatever. And he's like, there's too much depiction of this or that. And nobody in the panel said anything, but I thought of it like, dude, you're in the effing Matrix. Like, you were happy to be a part of but it doesn't matter because everybody is a whore. So it's fine. He's a whore. I'm a different kind of whore. You're not a whore. I don't think you are.
Honey.
But I mean, it's just whatever. It's so. I mean, we had with our friends tonight. We talked about how they know people who have gone through hours of DEI training, diversity, equity, inclusion training, and you can't say anything anymore. You can't say a rule of thumb because it's apocryphal, because that meant that's what you were supposed to beat women with in the rules of the Englishman or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. It's based on false. It's made up. But most of that stuff, and also, like, you can't say paddy wagon, certainly. You can't, because it's offensive to somebody. How about this? How about we just live in a world where you can be offensive and there are slurs, and we all effing just fucking, I'm sorry. We all just deal with it. And it's fine. How about that? or you can handle it your own way. How about we stop protecting people from meanness and roughness and etc.? When I worked with the guys, when I was a banquet porter at the Sonesta, not to name names, but my one boss was from Guyana, and some of the crew was from Guyana, and my other boss was from Portugal, and we had a black guy on the squad, and we had essentially 2 more Guyanese, and we had a Spanish guy, and we had me. And they called me white boy, and they called me many different versions of gay. as much as they could, because they thought that the gay thing was hilarious. As much as they could come together with ways in which I was not only gay, but I was spending nights and weekends defiling myself. It was white boy. What'd you do last night? Beep, 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 beep. This guy, half the football team there. It was all like total. It was complete harassment. Everything they can think of, and of course, I gave it back. I never used racist stuff. It wasn't my thing. But I would use this words they would use in me right back at them. As a matter of fact, I can think of them right now. I can't say any of them. But there are ways in kind of Guyanese culture to say insults that come to mind still. We said them so often. It was fun. And we worked, of course, with the wait staff at the hotel, and many of them were gay. And the guys would give the gay guys crap, and the gay guys would give those guys crap back. But we all kind of loved each other. We were all in the struggle together. We were all working together. There was never any animus. There was never any discord. Nobody
went to HR.
Nobody went to HR. And
nobody requested mandatory diversity training.
We all loved each other. And those guys, I remember one time, I remember getting those guys, some of the wait staff was great because they were wondering, like, I was an oddity. I was a kid who they thought I was educated. I was not, but I was I could speak English without a Boston accent. I knew how to say please and thank you. So they thought I was Ivy League. But they were like, they would teach. Many of them thought he must be gay, but doesn't understand that he's in the wrong job. So I remember one guy saying, Tom, can you grab the doilies? And I said, what's a doily? He said, you're definitely not gay. He was a gay guy. Another guy telling me about how to use a crummer. Do you know what a crummer is?
No.
A crummer is it's almost like you know what what's the shell that's long and curved, concave? Long, not a sand dollar, but the long one that you find on the beach.
Like a mussel?
I don't know. But a crummer is something you use to scrape crumbs from a table in fine dining.
Oh.
Right. And so I remember having a team of gay guys come and teach me how to use a crummer properly. And I had my crummer with me. Because that's how you clear a table with panache. You know, you wouldn't just like...
and shake out the tablecloth.
You use a crummer carefully. And it was such a wonderful... So there were so many different cultural things. People from all around the world. We had Guyanese, we had Haitians, we had this and that, all doing different things. We were all together, and we were all effing fine. We were fine together.
Well, and that's one of the things.
But that's funny. But at the time, of course, the person who I was dating was telling me about race relations in the country. You don't understand, Tom, this and that and this and that. Like, what do you know? You're learning it from college. I'm with these guys and girls. It's like, what do you know about any effing thing? Not you, Alice, but like, what... What do you know? I'm out in the world. You're in college learning, which is preparing you for the real world where I am right now, learning how to use a crummer.
Well, right. And it is one of the things that I think is so interesting. You know, people in college are big on like these theories, right? And, you know, critical race theory and gender theory and all this stuff. And, you know, a lot of this stuff goes back to various Marxist theories too, which is like, this was the idea of Marxism, was that countries would inevitably become communist over time and end up in this sort of utopian state at the end of things, that was like the natural progression of the state of affairs, right? Unfortunately, Marxist theory ran into reality like a freight train, and it turns out that in the real world it just doesn't work that well. And same with all these other theories that communists came up with, right? All these race theories and these theories of oppressors and oppressed people and this and that and privilege and whatever else, is that they sound fine in the classroom and on paper, and people can write books and their thesis about it and whatever else, and you can flesh out the whole theory of the thing. But the problem is when the rubber meets the road, these things don't work in the real world. And that's ultimately the problem with all these diversity trainings and racial theories and stuff, is that they are toxic fundamentally, just like Marxism was when it came into the real world. Is it just absolutely does not work and destroys everything it comes into contact with. It's the same with this race relation stuff. And we talked about this, like what's going on in all these liberal charity groups and stuff right now, whether it's Audubon or the Guttmacher Institute, like any group that's...
What's a Guttmacher?
That's the one that they wrote about in the Intercept piece. That's the pro-abortion like research group.
Oh, yes.
They're a charity organization. They're a nonprofit, and all these groups, they live and die by this stuff, and it is destroying them. It is destroying their organizations. It is turning all of them into totally toxic workplaces where people can't work. It's ruining the productivity of people in these companies. And that's the problem. Like, if you had a really good theory about how to fix race relations, which I don't think anybody would have told you have ever been perfect on this earth, certainly not in America, post-slavery or the civil rights movement or any of the rest of it. If you have some really great idea about how we can improve race relations and you put it into practice and you teach your stuff at a bunch of companies and race relations continuously get worse, well, then maybe your theory just sucks. Like, maybe if every time you have these diversity trainings and people do the principles of this call out culture and cancel culture and microaggressions and all this stuff, maybe if every time you implement this stuff, your organization devolves into finger pointing and destruction and essentially like the reign of terror in France, where people are reporting each other and getting each other fired and stuff. Like, maybe it's not a good theory then. Like, if that's the result every time you put it into practice, like, where has this race relation stuff ever been implemented where it's resulted in like people of different races getting along better together?
No.
Where has it ever
hasn't.
resulted
Well,
what you had already 30 years ago when you worked in hotels with people of different races, where everybody got along and worked together just fine? If they can't even manage to end up at that result, then it's not a very good theory.
You're totally right. Totally right. I can imagine now, the bond and relationship that we had in that hotel, now having to sit through lectures where they tell me and the other guys who's more important, who's more oppressed, who's responsible for all the oppression, etc. When we had something wonderful, it just creates divisions. It salts the earth, and that's why it's so gross. And one other thing is that those guys, the Guyanese, came here from Guyana in South America. They're all of Indian descent, where they have zero. They're all, I'm not even going to say their names, but their last names they're Indian names, and they are last on the bottom rung of the caste system in India. They have zero chance of ever being ascendant in India because it's a class system. Those guys came to this country, worked 80 hours a week or more. They worked as much as they could. They loved it. They wanted to work as much as they could. Even back then, they were buying property. I remember him buying property. One of my boss was Sammy. His name was Venkasamy. And he was buying property. That's all he did. They worked, bought property. And where he bought property used to be Roxbury, which is now the fashionable South End. So I guarantee you that
He's doing a lot better than
yes,
us.
the guy who called me Lolo boy, what Lolo means penis boy, because he was suggesting that I was a more
Into
celebrant of Pride Month than which is true. Never complained, didn't give a flying bleep, and worked in. Now I assume is a multimillionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, in it's community wide. And thank God they didn't get polluted by this movement that told them to bitch and moan about.
Yeah, but their kids probably have.
Well, at this point, you're probably right. That's
That's what sucks. Like a lot of these parents that have worked so hard to get their kids positioned for success in this country, their kids are being completely poisoned by this crap in the school systems. Completely poisoned.
All right, so we gotta to start wrapping it up. So, did you have something that you wanted to get to?
We can do some things in the Patreon show too.
Okay, because I did want to just
over on Patreon.
I want to quickly before we go to the chat. Oh, by the way, did you notice what I did when you were gone? A bonus show for the Patreon.
Oh, you did? I didn't see that.
Yes, I did.
Just you? I'll have to listen to it.
Just me.
I never get to listen to just you anymore because I'm always with you.
Oh, you've heard this already. You heard this last night. This is about dropping off our son at camp.
Oh.
So am I a bitch? Yes, and you'll hear that if you want to hear it. But it's just totally honest. It's just Patreon is totally honest accounting of what was happening yesterday because it was just one of the most profound moments of my life. All right, so I do want to very quickly before we get to the chat, I do want to get to this. The economic director Brian Deese was on with Margaret Brennan, who did a great job with him today. But if you think that there is a chance that that this administration has any clue how to get out of this situation, then I would say you are wrong.
All the things they want to do are going to make it worse.
Despite all of what you laid out, and I know the president said recession is not inevitable, it seems increasingly probable. The Conference Board put out their survey this week. It shows 8 out of 10 global CEOs now expect a recession within the next 12 to 18 months. So what power does the president have to stop that kind of contraction?
Well, I think where we are in the economy right now is in a transition. And I spoke to CEOs over the course of the past week from sectors across the economy, and they're figuring out how to navigate this transition. Some of this is exactly what we need to see.
They're planning around a recession.
Well, they're planning around transitions in our economy. People are buying less goods, spending time at home. They're spending more on services. That creates some real challenges for some companies and some CEOs.
Anyway, so there you go. She actually, Margaret Brennan actually bludgeoned him in this interview because he was dodging and weaving, and he's a weasel, and he's more of a flack than anything else. That said, Dana Bash had something interesting to say also. This isn't a Freudian slip, as I called him. I coined that term.
Republican voters in South Carolina ousted one of the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach the former president over his role in the January 6th election.
Are they suggesting that the president was erect at that time? All right, so here we go. Chat time. Ready, homie?
Yeah.
I haven't previewed these, so I don't know.
I can't believe I have to try to defend my love for the movie Ladybugs. I just love it. There's no explanation. It just has a soft spot for me. It's a soft spot for me. All right, bye.
Ladybugs was a Rodney Dangerfield movie where he was like a soccer coach, and it was a horrific time for Dangerfield. He wrapped it up shortly after he was done, but you don't have to. I think it's sentimental to Justin.
Hi, Steve from Merrimack.
Hey.
Tom, 2 things. 1, Greg Poehler is a moonbat, but you have to admit that was a top 5 KMS show yesterday.
Okay, first of all, Steve, a few things. 1, we love DeLeo's pizza. Is it DeLeo's?
I don't even know what we're talking
in
about.
Merrimack, by the way. I want you to know because it's thin crust and we love them. That Greg Poehler show.
Oh, the pizza you got the other day?
Yeah.
Riverside.
No. In
I
Merrimack.
thought you got,
It's
okay.
different. But that Greg Poehler show, KMS show, was probably the best show that they've ever had. The funniest one I thought was when they had Little Alex Jones, when they were doing that. That one was killing me, driving the car to Vermont. But that Greg Poehler show, it's Amy Poehler's brother.
Oh.
And he's a brilliant guy, and he got it. And he just added like nitrous oxide to the show. It was brilliant. If he was on that show constantly, I mean, the show's already awesome. But it would be the standalone
Were they having
greatest
him on
thing.
to try out as like another person?
I don't
Because they
think so. He
have,
lives in
okay. Isn't she from Bedford or something?
She's from Burlington, but he lives in Europe. He's in Hollywood too. He does stuff, but he's in Belgium or no. Where the Poehler's Swedish. He's in Sweden. Okay, Steve. Back to Steve.
Hi, Steve from Merrimack. Tom, 2 things. 1, Greg Poehler is a moonbat, but you have to admit that was a top 5 KMS show.
Have you heard it,
yesterday.
Alice?
No.
Absolutely hilarious.
Gotta listen.
2,
Okay.
in your discussion of Irish foibles, you left out one, which also denotes Irish rudeness, which would be the Irish goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
When an Irish-American a-hole, much like myself,
Tom does
leaves
this, too.
a family party or any gathering without saying goodbye to anyone. Thank you.
That is true,
Tom's
Steve.
big on that too.
Yeah, I am. I am big on that. It's dishonorable, but my friends know it. I expect it now. It started really in my mid-late 20s. Yeah.
I forced you to come back downstairs the other day.
Yeah, leave me alone. Don't bring me back downstairs, Alice. God. The Irish goodbye is when we're done. We're done. We're finito, and we only have enough. If you're out at the bar at night, you only have enough energy left, Alice, in the reactor core to get home. There's no more energy to talk to people or do anything else. That's why you have to slip out. There's no more time. Plus, if you're a jerk like me, then you're going to try to keep people at the bar no matter what, at any cost, which is probably what Steve is, too.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Alice. Just wanted to add my 2
Phil.
cents into why we definitely need the visual portion of your podcast, not just the audible portion.
How caught up are we on that, by the way?
Not caught up.
Okay.
I'll work on it today, okay?
Okay. Like a week not caught up?
Yeah, like a week.
I have 5 reasons for this. Number 1,
It's a lot of reasons.
it shows that Tom is either helpless or uninterested in responding to his children's needs.
Correct.
Number 2,
Uninterested.
I find it enjoyable watching Tom shouting while the podcast is muted in response to said children. Number 3, Alice being the one to care for her kids when a parent is urgently needed. Number 4, always enjoy the guest appearances from Pepper. And lastly, number 5, it's just such a wonderful dichotomy in the ordinary appearance of Tom and the exceptional beauty of Alice.
What is
so
this?
Please,
Oh, thank you.
please start putting the visual portion of the podcast back on YouTube.
Okay.
I cannot thank you enough. Phil from Attleboro.
Okay,
Thank you.
Phil.
Bye-bye.
I will.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, Phil.
I am thrilled that he called.
Because you complimented me. I will.
He complimented me, too. He said, ordinary appearance. That's much better than I ever get.
I think you're handsome.
Thank you, Alice.
Happy Father's Day to all the Burn Bros and Shatheads, including Tom Shattuck.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
There we go.
I just saw a video of a man and a woman having sex on a motorcycle while he was riding it.
Jesus.
She was
Seems
riding
dangerous.
him while he was riding the motorcycle. Wild. That's dangerous.
Laconia kid, right?
Is that soon? There were a lot of motorcycles on the
I
road
think it
today.
might be happening. I'm not even sure.
Okay.
Not
There were a lot of
totally sure.
motorcycles around. I wasn't sure. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Happy Father's Day, burn barrelers. And don't say the word, but you know what you are. All of you who bought t-shirts that say it on it. Happy Father's Day to you and everybody else out there. You can always talk to us on Twitter at BurnBarrelPod, Facebook.com/BurnBarrelPodcast. We're going to head over right now to Patreon and do our Patreon bonus show. And we'll talk to you soon over there.
C'est la vie.